welcome back to the Tori Nook Show, where real conversations meet real success. I'm Tori Nook. I'm the CEO founder of Anchor Retail. I'm an entrepreneur, wife, and mother of three. In each episode, I feature leaders, entrepreneurs, creators who've built their successful careers and their lives with intention, intuition, and a strong sense of who they are. We talk about the decisions that shape a life, the moments that test you, and habits and mindset that keep you moving forward. My goal is to learn how people create success on their own terms and to share those insights with everyone. I hope you enjoy this. I have Danielle Sprouls. She is a transformational leader. She is an executive coach. She is a published author, former attorney, and a powerful advocate for women's empowerment. She widely is known as the WTF Lady in quotes, with WTF standing for Women That Flourish. She's the founder of Unscripted Pivots, LLC. It's a coaching and leadership development company that helps ambitious professionals, men and women, navigate their career and transitions and personal reinvention with clarity, courage, and confidence. Before this chapter, though, she spent 18 years in commercial title insurance industry, where she closed more than $20 billion in deals, including the iconic Chrysler Building in New York City. And she was recognized twice as Women of Influence in New York real estate. She also is the host of Unscripted Pivots podcast, and she's also coming up with a new book called Pivots, which will be published next year. So please watch for that.
All
and
right,
Danielle is, I know, but Danielle, I'm glad to have you here. And I also want to mention that you're married and mother of 4 grown children.
Yes.
So we're
Married
talking
times
real
2.
humans. So yeah,
No.
divorced once, married again.
Quite human.
You're a human
Yeah.
being. So that's just giving you the quick background. So I'm really happy that you're on here. And Danielle's someone that I've actually personally been working with for 6 months. First I heard of Danielle through Allison Weiss's podcast called The Spotlight. And if anyone's not listening to that, I highly recommend you do. Allison is a unbelievable interviewer, and she does some extremely in-depth interviews with many women across many platforms in real estate and business. And I first heard Danielle's interview on that podcast, and I personally know Allison, and I thought that her story was really intriguing to me because, she was a mother of 4 and she was a full-time businesswoman. And then she decided to change her careers, move from New Jersey, New York City metro area out to Orange County. And I just really was, I don't know, sometimes you're just intrigued by people. And then I randomly ran into her at Globe Street. So here we are.
I know. Isn't that so great though? It was like you knew of me before we actually met physically. And me being at that conference, Globe Street Women of Influence conference, which they have annually, and that's taking place in Denver, I think on the regular, right? I hadn't been there for a couple of years, and I actually went last minute.
It was my first time.
Yeah, and it's such a fabulous conference. So anybody that, and I think men are invited too, but you'd be a definite minority. But it is a Woman of Influence conference, and I've been before, always loved it. Fell off a couple of years, didn't again. They knocked it out of the park in 2025. So now I'm a diehard believer. Like that is on my to-do list every year. But it was wonderful to just like meet you. And I think we were just like randomly walking out of the same room. So this is how the universe, when we're really paying attention to it, you get that intuitive pull, like, oh, that's the person I'm supposed to connect with. And so we were at the right place at the right time. But, to your mention about the Allison Weiss and the podcast, it's what you're doing here with your talk show, right? Because we are able to have a ripple effect of the extent to which we don't even appreciate or understand, right? We know certain people we're going to hit because like, oh, listen to me. And, they know you. But it's the people that you probably would have never come in touch with, but for the fact that you put the voice and the message to it and, got it rolling. And so I'm celebrating all that you're doing. I think this is absolutely fabulous. And I'm very, very happy to be here. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. The synchronicities in life, like I think that's like a big thing I want people to realize is not to ignore them. Like you don't just run into people. You just don't hear about them. Nothing's really a coincidence. There's a reason. Even if it's been a bad experience too, because, you learn from it. Right. So
Everything is data. Everything is data, right? Even
Right.
failures. No, no, I'm serious.
Yeah, no,
It's
it is.
and I'll tell you, the more it stings, the more data that's in there, people. Okay, unwrapped it. It's a gift. It's an
Well,
absolute gift. So,
we're going to talk
yeah.
more about that because I know that you're very, you have a lot of wisdom on pivots and
Yeah.
when things are hitting the fan and how to turn.
Yeah. That's
So
what my work is based on.
it
That's what my
is,
work
and
is
that's what
based
I
on.
like.
Yeah.
If we like press pause like on your life today, what
Mhm.
does the picture really look like the work you're doing with unscripted pivots and the life that you're building even outside of work with your relations, your family, and like your community? I mean, it is in a way inspiring that you moved literally across the country.
What entertains me is that first of all, we all have courage. It's whether or not we're going to use it. It's kind of like discipline, right?
Mm, yeah,
It's within us. Are we going to utilize it? Are we going to nurture it? Are we going to bring it forward? And I didn't really recognize how courageous of a move that was to go. And I've only lived in one state in my entire life. I mean, I've traveled extensively, but New Jersey, and to pick up and to go all the way to California, into Orange County, that was bold, wasn't it bold, right? But I didn't think about it
totally.
that at the time. But what I wanted to mention, it's interesting to me how that has been so attractive to so many people. They're like, look, you had excuse me, the balls. I'm a girl, I don't have balls, but you had the
No, I
balls to
agree.
do something. So like you had gumption. And then
Hmm.
I continue to exhibit gumption, whether it's in my work life or my personal life. Like, with
Right.
skydiving last year, people were like, why the hell would you jump out of a perfectly good plane? Now you're talking to a woman who has historically been afraid of heights. I'm very uncomfortable about heights, not a
Yeah,
big
I am
fan of
too.
flying,
Hmm.
and here I'm jumping out of planes. I'm doing it again in about a week. On next Saturday, I'll be jumping for the second time. Why? Because my kids are interested in doing it, and they're full blown adults, and I am in it for the laughs. So I enjoy about embrace life, have a good time, take
Hmm.
calculated risks, and just go for it. If it's on your on your heart list. Today, I say yes. I say yes more often to the things I probably would not have, 10 years ago, because
Do
I
you
would have
feel
allowed
like
fear. But go ahead.
right? Because that's what I was gonna ask, like, when do you feel like what age did you hit where you cut that fear off?
No, you know what? A lot of people think it's associated with the calendar, and there is
Mhm,
some things to be said about getting older. You get older, you get wiser, and there's things
mhm,
like that. I mean, there's a lot of truth
yeah,
to that. But honestly, I would credit most of my changes coming from moments of healing and
mm,
having and addressing anything in my life that wasn't working and doing the difficult internal work to become the woman I am today. So I don't think it was because I was 40 at one time, 50, now I'm 61.
right,
It's more that I got comfortable with
mhm,
myself. I got to fall in love with myself again, and I only
mhm,
got to do that out of a lot of internal work. And to all the things that you bring to the table, Tori, about
mhm,
intuition, I
mhm,
started to honor that voice inside with more consistency and more gratitude. So
mm,
once those
mhm,
things came into play, everything changed. I don't think it's because I got older. I think it's because I got smarter about the choices, and I allowed myself not to live in fear. Fear is going to
mhm,
visit us on the daily, but how
right,
long you stay in that kind
right.
of arrested sense of paralysis, that's completely a choice. That's completely a choice.
Yes, and you talk about fear a lot,
Yeah.
um, in breaking it too,
Mhm.
because it doesn't matter where you are, you're gonna encounter it. You can't move away from it. People, like, they'll literally move away and think it's gonna go away,
Well,
and it doesn't.
I wanna correct you there, because this is very important message on my behalf. I don't suggest people break fear.
Mhm,
I suggest that people align with it. Fear is very human, and we're not
mhm,
going to get around it.
no,
Really, when we treat it with the respect that it deserves and we align with our fear, we're no longer trying to distract, run, or, outpace it. Fear is just a signal. That's all it is. In the book, I described something that my mother always said to me. She said, Danielle, future events already ruined. That was the acronym that she would put to it.
mhm,
She said, you've got projections on outcomes. And you know what? There's really no evidence for that. Like, could it turn out that way? Maybe. But what about all the other scenarios that can come to pass? Why are you ruining your future with these limiting thoughts? And she was always after me for that. Now, how well we want to pay attention to our moms when we're like 16, maybe 25,
yeah,
whatever.
not a
She's
lot.
long gone now by 9.
Yeah,
And I will tell you, if you're a parent out there, keep planting the seeds, people, because it may be later and you may not even be alive when it comes to fruition.
Right.
I live by this today because of the things that she had instilled in me.
Mm.
And today I'm just like, you know what? I have a whole chapter based on fear. And that was the longest chapter in the WTF book. And the WTF
That
stood
was.
for worth the fear, because
Mhm.
we're going to have fear. What I'm saying is it's worth it. Anything that you want to go for, that discomfort is something that you should anticipate, embrace, and work with as opposed to against.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
You've had so many, I like anybody. I mean, you have big moments that change like the whole arc of your life, right?
Yeah.
Like looking back, what turned out to be your biggest pivot point that maybe you didn't even realize was happening until later?
I mean, so many things come to mind. I'm trying to think about what I really want to share. One of the reasons I do the work today is because I am so entertained by my own life and the lives of others, how we scripted these things early on and what we thought would happen. And I never, a big pivot point was, going to law school and really wanting to be a career woman. Like I was hell bent
Mhm,
on, I wanted a family. It wasn't
mhm,
that was out of the question. I'm one of five. And the husband that I was married to at the time, the father of my four children, he also comes from five. But I never anticipated staying home. That was a
mm,
huge pivot for me to,
mm,
when I was pregnant with the second one, to leave a career I had worked really hard to get to. Mostly I
right.
was a student, right? I mean, I was in law school and then you pass the bar thing, thankfully the first time, and then you're on your way. And then all of a sudden I became a baby maker. I mean,
Yeah,
I spent the whole 90s having children. I had one in 91, 93, 95, 99. It was like, where is this going? And by the time the fourth one was, and then I got settled into that, but I always knew I'd go back to work. And
yeah,
so when you say, where did you change? I changed yet again because I went from being an at-home mom, going to all the PTA meetings and the mommy meet classes and all that kind of stuff. And when the
yeah.
fourth one was about a year and a half old, I had this undeniable urge to go back to work. And
Mhm,
I knew I needed to do that. And lo and behold, and I'll give my grandmother in heaven credit, on her
mhm,
deathbed, she goes, I know that you've been very frustrated. And as much as you love your kids and people are culturally expecting you to stay home, and their dad wanted me to be a stay at home mom.
yeah, yeah,
She goes, when I get upstairs, Danielle, meaning heaven, because she was on her deathbed. She goes, when I get up there, she goes, it's all going to work out. And I swear to God, a few days later, I was offered a job I was not even asking for at a party where an attorney that was
mhm,
there said, I heard you want to go back to work for me. And so I heard Dee Dee's voice in there because I said, oh,
right,
my grandmother is making this easy. But lo and behold, it was in something that I never did, which was commercial title insurance. Like, what the hell is that?
right, right.
And so I said yes to it because it didn't look like going down resume alley and trying to get a job in law, which I had taken a hiatus. And I thought it would be a brief stint, but what it turned into was an enormous career because within 6 months I got recruited to New York, and that
Mhm,
just changed everything. So all of
mhm,
a sudden I was a very much in demand, well-traveled business person,
right.
but with four kids living in New Jersey, 2-hour commute to New York. And so things changed drastically then. And I
Yeah,
did that for a long time. I think you said 18 years. It's actually more like 24. I
24,
still
okay.
have relationships in New York where I'll handle portfolios in the commercial real estate space as the older clients, like older and like
Yeah,
existing long-term relationships, but it's
mhm,
not something that I pursue or I look for. My life has just changed dramatically in the last couple of years. So, but most of my clients are in the commercial real estate space. And when I say clients, they're people that I career coach on, or
yeah,
that I'm helping like ghostwrite or
mhm,
podcasting, all sorts of things I coach on. It's pretty much like, oh, Danielle used to do this or she is doing this. Bring me up to speed. Um, it's been incredible. And that and speaking, now I'm a
yeah, you
paid
do speak a
speaker.
lot.
And so that's that's taking off, and this is the trajectory today.
But I think that's what's so awesome, like, the story about your grandmother is well, for
Yeah.
before that you talked to her is you had those pings inside, like, it was
Yeah.
boiling. She
Hmm.
obviously is extremely intuitive and
Yeah.
felt that she had to say that at a very hard
Critical
time.
time. Yeah.
Critical, very
Yeah.
critical, but she knew she had to tell you, and the fact
Yeah.
that you you meet this attorney that offers you a job like that, I think that's something people really need to realize is sometimes these amazing opportunities come up
Hmm.
and sometimes they don't take them because 'cause they're like, "Am I even worthy of this?"
Yeah.
But that's
Well,
when you know it's meant to be.
yeah.
That synchronicity happening just like that. And you had been working for what? Probably, I'm guessing 10 years at least, right?
Yeah, I was about 8. It was about
Okay.
8.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was,
That's a long time.
and let's be clear. I never really had the opportunity to practice law for a
Mhm.
very long time. So I was trained to
Right.
be a lawyer, and then it was, so I will tell you this: whether it's opportunity or just information, when you lead a life of curiosity like I do, and there's an openness to it, and this is intentional, you will you will see things, you will be in a heightened state of awareness, and this is where the game changes. Because once you have information that you used to like maybe just pass over, because our brains get crowded, and everything's competing for our attention. People are, screens are, technology, everything. When you live in like a little bit of a pause, and you observe, right? You don't just try to kind of like occupy space, but you observe. Life changes dramatically, and the amount of opportunities and data and relationships that can come before you, and to look at it like, this doesn't necessarily have to make sense. That's where things start to change for me, because when I would get the intuitive pull, I used to try to, maybe please other people, or are they going to be on board, or I'd repeat old patterns, like things like that would come in and cloud it. Once I removed those barriers, everything changed. I was able to access my intuitive self in such a heightened way that now, I mean, I'm not saying life is easy, but it is easier. And the clarity that comes from that is just, it's such a gift. It's
But
such
you
a
know what I
gift.
like though about your story too that I found intriguing is so many women, because they've been out of the workforce, whether
Hmm.
they have a bachelor's or an MBA or legal, like you, they think that they can't go get another
Yeah.
career. And you didn't just haven't get another career. You had another high, not just high powered, but extremely financially lucrative
Yeah.
career.
Yeah,
I
and title
mean,
insurance. I mean, it was pretty sick.
yeah,
When you
yeah,
reference I closed $20 billion, like that's real. And so the
that is.
commission statements
Those are
that
big
come
fees.
with that. But I mean, I was, I was really
But I think it's a
fortunate.
good inspiration, to other people to see, you can do it. There's somebody out there when you like you said, you put it out there and you met that guy
the,
randomly,
the
randomly, right?
Yeah, or when you say that guy, were you referring to my
The
now
attorney.
husband? What do we refer?
No, the
That
attorney who
attorney.
offered you the
Well, like
job
I so that attorney actually, that attorney was
at the party.
courting. Yeah, he was courting my then husband, because I used to be
Oh.
married to a commercial real estate lawyer.
Mm,
So
mhm.
because that attorney had a title insurance firm, he wanted my husband's work. So he was kind
Mm,
of hovering around us because he wanted Pat's work. And
yeah,
when he realized that I may actually become a salesperson for him, he's like, well, hell's bells. Danielle's got
yeah.
this legal background. I mean, she can like knock this out of the park. And I do have a very strong sense of sales. Like, I'm really
Mhm.
good at selling. I
Yeah,
think that just has to do with, I don't know, the way I grew up
kinda
and being a
natural. Yeah,
Leo type
yeah,
A,
right.
and so and more than that, I freaking love people. I love talking to
Yeah.
them. I want to know what they want. How could I serve them?
Mhm.
Like, that the interest is
Yeah,
sincere, and it's on fire.
yeah,
I very, very good in sales. And so, yeah, I was just swooped up, and one thing led to the other. And I just kept getting recruited and recruited, and, worked my tail off. And there's a lot of sacrifices to be made. So if we're talking to women, I would say this, all of those things do come with sacrifice. And so that's not really news, but it is real and it is raw when you're in the middle of it, especially when you're a mother. And I was a mother of four. So, there's a lot of things that you have to miss when put the career first. That said, I mean, when you're making seven figures a year and you were doing zero at home, all of a sudden you could save for college. And it wasn't like, I'm like doing this so that I can buy myself some fancy cars. I mean, sure, I had that, but it was more that like, wow, what I can enable my kids to do. And I didn't abandon them. I mean, sure, we had to have live-in help and all that. And their dad was very hands-on. He still is. I love their dad. We're besties.
yeah.
Um, but it was really kind of cool, but what a whirlwind. When I look back at that season and just New York, and then all of a sudden I fell into, and here's the thing. I was fortunate. I mean, I do think luck sometimes comes and it graces you, and then you must meet it. So it's almost like, a gift that you can either ignore or you can open. And I opened that damn package and I investigated how I could utilize it to the best of my abilities. And so, yeah, the business grew. And I was like closing the Chrysler Building, the MetLife Building, 66 Fifth Avenue, Lipstick Building. I refinanced Rockefeller Center probably 4 times. So, I mean, with this comes big tickets. I mean, this stuff makes you really good money. But the one thing that I would say, like, I don't have regret, but I have to acknowledge that golden handcuffs are a real thing. You do get, swept up in, making more, doing more, and all those things. And so I don't have any regrets, but it was a very stretched time, raising the family and doing that and trying to show up as best as I could in all areas. Suffice to say, I have a fabulous relationship with my kids. We're extremely close. They have more good memories than not. I mean, for sure,
Mhm.
about me being a mom. And so,
Mhm.
all ends well, all ends well. But there was stress and there was, yeah, it took me down many times, like emotionally,
For
sure.
sure, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you and I talk about that. It
Hmm.
does. And that's something, I think to note to anybody out there who is in business. It doesn't have to be just commercial real estate, but I think that people really should take serious consideration of having a coach like sports athletes do
Yeah.
have a coach, right?
Yeah.
High performers do. And I realize a lot of high performers in business do too. And even if you're not a high performer but want to be, and you have the income or a company that'll pay for it, I think it's worth doing, especially with someone like you align with. And you could see yourself grow in places and get advice from somebody who has been there, right? And and then kind of switching back to the intense times. Do you think that that was the hardest season in your life that you ever walked through personally and professionally? Or was there ever anything else that was, say, on the line? How did that season like permanently like change you into leader like you are now?
Okay, so raising the kids and doing all of that and the pressure and the schedule, as nuts as that was, that definitely wasn't my most challenging time. I would tell you that after I moved to the West Coast, um, a lot of things changed, right? The commute, the 2-hour commute and the pace of play had kind of settled. And I continued to work for New York remotely, but I was no longer, in demand, going into New York constantly, entertaining clients in the city with these crazy ass hours. And so I then, in that season of my life, had an opportunity to look at about some choices and behaviors that I had adopted along the way. And I started to recognize that I had some habits that they were just very injurious to me, that had kind of accumulated over the course of my career. And so one of the things that I started to tackle, and it was a little bit of a battle, to tell you the truth, because I thought, well, let me get healthier. I'm getting older. I felt that I was drinking too much, and I knew that I had done that as a crutch for a very long time. So I started to address that, and that got to be a little trickier than I anticipated. I would tell you, yeah, it really was. And so then I looked at my genetic history and my family and how that presented. So yeah, about 8 years ago, I put down the bottle, and there was no drinking in my life whatsoever. So I'm fully sober, and that probably is one of the things that I will credit. It's not because I am no longer like, getting a buzz that makes me great.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
because that is probably the biggest part of my evidence in life, where I came to terms with something that I knew that I wanted to do, needed to do, and that I wasn't doing successfully in isolation. So once I aligned with people, we'll put it that way, that would bring me to the next place. What happened in my life was two things. One, I recognized the importance of outreach. I recognized that I don't have to be a solo act. And that spilled over, Tori, to all areas of my life. And that was a game changer. And I no longer hid behind pride. I no longer hid behind titles or track records, because those things made me look better on paper than I felt in reality. And I no longer silenced, that part of me that was, well, not the negative self-talk so much, but the things you don't like about yourself. You're like, yeah, this, and I knew that, like, my spiritual connection to God was a little bit broken. It's not that I
Mhm.
ever stopped believing or loving or
Right.
revering, but
Yeah.
I didn't hand over the outcomes that I do today. So through that painful period, that really compelled growth in unexpected ways. This wasn't just about not having a glass of wine anymore. This was so much bigger. And that experience is really what catapulted me into the understanding that a lot of things that I've learned along the way in my life were untrue, or misguided, or too small in thinking. which,
Mm-hmm.
gave birth to the curiosity. I mean, it has a lot to do with why I had the courage and gumption to write WTF, because I never wrote a book before, but I
Right.
started to talk the WTF language on the podcast. Now, WTF is trademarked to be Women That Flourish, but when you pick up the book, it means so much more.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
wanted to have something that was evidence of what I was talking about. And every single chapter is WTF. The first one being what's the framework, where I talk about the relationship between that curveball or what the Fagana moment,
Right.
and then the pivot. What do you do when you have a curveball? Because in life, we're guaranteed curveballs. We're going to get them small, big, they happen all the time. Just the unexpected
Yeah.
disruptions to our autopilot.
Right.
I change that and say, this is how you can look at it. WTF, it's worth the fear. WTF, oh, you failed, you fucked up. Excuse my French on here. Wisdom through failure. WTF, wake that flame. WTF, who to follow. And I don't mean on Instagram. I mean the circle of friends that you keep and the people you align with in business, that will determine how happy, joyous, and successful you are. So I talk
100%.
about that company, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these things, when transition fuels. Because a lot of us, I've done this before, that we don't want change, because change it's uncomfortable. It puts us in a
Totally.
place where we don't feel like we're like have as much clarity or as experience, and we can't see the future. And so my message out there is like, you have a curveball and you don't see the future. This is okay. This is actually pretty great, because you have an opportunity here more so than an obstacle. This next book is called Master the Pivot: How Bold Leaders Turn Chaos into Their Competitive Edge. The word pivot in the title, Master the Pivot, is PIVOT, another acronym, because I'm an acronym nerd. I see the world in acronyms. I kid you not. Some people see it in numbers. I'm not an accountant. I
You
see
get it from
just
studying
acronyms.
all the time.
It's the
That's
way
how
I
you remember
studied
things.
in law school. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
people talk and they'll like all of a sudden they'll say something with the letter P, and then I'm on all the P words. Like
Yeah.
like that, my brain. Okay. With no explaining it. But P stands for pause. So I'm putting forth a method that when you have those curveballs, and this is more of like it's a fable but business related fictional book, where I talk about the method, and P stands for pause. I stands for identify what the identify the opportunity within this chaos. V, vet your options. O, outreach, human connection. Test this. Don't do things in isolation. Ask the trusted advisors, friends, or people around you. And then T is test. Take the leap and test, and then tweak it as you have to go. So it's literally a systematic method for how we would deal with the change. So WTF is the moment itself. The Pivots is the book that shows you the direction and way to do it. Now, did I know I was going to do all this a couple of years ago? Hell to the no. These things just kind of developed and organically evolved. But I'm the woman today that will say yes to the things I didn't script or plan, because I know that if I just did the things I planned, life would be so much smaller, to tell you the truth.
Right. Like if you used your
So,
lawyer logical brain
yeah.
versus this intuitive side, that you're
Yes.
listening to like the deeper core of yourself.
I am. And I
Hmm.
consider intuition to be experienced intelligence. That's really what it is. I
It
mean,
is.
sometimes, yeah. And a lot of people hear it. It's not that they don't hear it, they don't honor it, because it demands change most of the time. And again, we can easily get uncomfortable with change. I am not running towards change all the time, but I no longer fear it. I explore it. That's how I look at those things. I go, okay, take a moment. So when fear visits me, or anything that would stop me and create an obstacle, I just stay in those periods much shorter than the average person, because I've developed tools to work around it. And those are the things that I bring to the job in the forefront. So when I'm working with clients, I would consider myself, we call my an executive coach, because it's like, yeah, sure, I'm certified in that. But really what I am is a leadership strategist that really enjoys meeting people in the messy middle. Where are you growing? What are you doing? And it's not about that they're broken, it's that they're
Yeah.
becoming.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
when you no longer can work by the same rules or stay contained within the same role, that is more uncomfortable than exploring outside of it. And so I befriend those clients, and I say, okay, I'm here to guide you, but also to be your accountability partner. Because as you know, Tori, we can make plans and goals for ourselves, have a vision, and then all of a sudden it's like weeks turns into months, turns into years. So I end up being somebody who says, okay, we're going to make this happen, and we're going to make it happen together. And you're right. I mean, big sports athletes, coaching is something that's like expected, like who goes without it. Business people that want to get to the next level, yeah, it
And
needs to
that
be more
they have,
normalized. Yeah.
yeah, or they have consultants, like when you really dig into like,
Yes.
wow, companies you
Hmm.
thought that were amazing or people, they all have consultants or coaches or whatever, right? Or,
Yeah.
executive leadership on the
Mhm.
outside, right? Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
what do you suggest to people who have a serious WTF moment that say they're
Hmm.
getting divorced, they just got
Hmm.
fired? What would you
Yeah.
advise them to do in the first 24 hours? Because we know your books can show you how to change your muscle habits, right?
Yeah.
Your brain
Yeah.
muscle. But what would you say in the first 24 hours when you're like, oh, WTF?
Do nothing. The first thing when you're thrown a curveball is you have to pause, because there's a big difference between responding to something and reacting to something. And it is so easy to identify the wrong problem when you're so emotionally raw. And so do nothing 24 hours. And I'm serious when I say that, because things have to settle. A reaction can be a lot more injurious than a response, because now you're spinning in the wrong direction. And so there's information gathering that has to happen, and it starts with internal searching, not the outside facts. So I would say do nothing. The whole WTF brand is about taking a beat, right? And saying, hey, and I put WTF acronyms to it mostly because I want to bring some joy, fun, and levity to something that we universally know as a bad thing. And I'm like, you know what? Not necessarily a bad thing. We're used to saying that like it was tragic. And there's triumph in those moments when we treat them as such.
Right. And I think one of the big lessons like you've learned is that's more important than any external achievement since you've had many is listening to your internal voice. It sounds
Hmm.
like unless is there anything else that you feel like really changed choices habit wise for you to really hear yourself?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm always going to tell you that God is first in my life. And when I say that, it's not to be, overly religious. I'm more spiritual than I would tell you. I mean, I grew up Catholic. I mean, Catholic
Me
grammar
too.
school, nursery, like
Hmm.
the whole bit,
Yeah.
like so I
Hmm.
did that, and I honor that.
Hmm.
Today it looks a lot different to me, and so I lean in on God's resources, and if somebody chooses to, worship, or I believe in having a higher power, something greater than yourself. So that could be the ocean, that could be nature, that could be whatever the heck works for you. For me, it's very much God. And so I leave the outcomes to God. And today, whenever I think that I'm taking on a little bit too much, or my stretch and my dreams or my vision are a little bit grander than my capabilities, but I want to move in that direction and I know they're possible, I say, this is not my resources that we're relying on. God has infinite resources. And so as long as I turn it over, now that doesn't like abscond the necessity of me doing work. I've got to take daily action and be disciplined in my choices to get
But
where
you're
I
not
want to
just sitting
go.
and meditating in a corner all day.
Yeah, no,
No.
it doesn't fall
Like
from the sky.
right. But
But,
you're surrendering
I'm
to a
no,
point.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it has brought more joy to my life, because I'm not just so like, you know what? One of the things that I think was kind of limiting, it worked in my favor and then it worked against me simultaneously, is being a little bit of a control freak. And
Oh,
when
we all
yeah, but
like
I
right
know,
here.
hi, guilty. And,
Hi.
and, and, and you know what? Successful people will
Yeah.
fall into that category. I mean,
Mhm.
we're almost naturally inclined. And it's really what kind of like, greases those wheels until it becomes a wall. And so I am not, I don't try to control anything other than myself today. Now, I will
Mhm.
make intentional moves so that I can position things the way I want to, but I no longer try to manipulate outcomes. I know that outcomes will come as they should, and I can only do my part to get where it is. And I no longer try to control people, places, or things. I've given that up. Doesn't mean I don't have opinions. What I have is acceptance, and acceptance is an approval. One of the things that I talk about all the time, we talked about awareness before, is there's 3 A's that I teach. The first one is being in a state of awareness. It's the first thing that has to happen. And a lot of people don't get there very quickly. And in certain situations, it takes me a beat. It all depends. This can change personal life, business life. You get in a state of awareness and you know what you see is true. Then the next step is A, acceptance, acceptance of what's going on. That's another big leap. Now, acceptance doesn't equal approval. The universe is
Right.
not saying, do you approve of this?
Right.
Okay. Do you, like, if I make a mistake or I do something business, personal, I go, okay, I accept that happened. Now, what am I going to do about it? That's the third A. Then you take it into action. So you have acceptance, awareness, and then action. And that's how you can move forward. That's how you can deal with
100%.
the WTF moments. And that's how you pivot with clarity and success. And so, but it always starts with the pause. We are trained and conditioned to just be rushed all the time. And our schedules would reflect that that is reasonable, because high achieving people tend to cram in too much. I mean, I just wrote a news letter about, the capacity drift. It's like the more you're capable of doing, the more you take on at the expense of what? You need to look at these things, right? No, this is like, it's just like inventory
Yeah.
on any given week. And
Right.
guess what?
And we
We
talked
get
about this
better.
yesterday,
Yeah,
you
we
know?
get better at it, Tori, but we don't
Right.
graduate. This is
Right.
like a lifelong kind
It
of
is.
habit that you
Mhm.
develop, and you're going
Yeah.
to have the slips, and then you're like, oh, okay, oh, that's right, I can correct this. So the moments that screw you up, they just get shorter because you have the tools to apply to them, but you never perfect them. No, that
No,
doesn't
and I and I,
exist.
I like I like the fact that you emphasize that, like, nobody's perfect, no matter
Yeah.
how people think people are perfect, they're not. Like,
No,
there's so
no,
many layers,
no.
and then once you heal one layer, there's something next. And then sometimes what you think
Yes.
you healed, you didn't heal, and it comes
Hmm.
back again.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think people get discouraged with life,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't, right? Um,
No,
and what do you feel like for someone to be a whole person, right? To really, because I think, like you were talking about, like, in your 20s you're one person, in your 30s you're
yeah.
another, 40s, 50s, everything even layers up, right? But how do you feel like someone can really become whole, like in mind, body, and in spirit? And it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're successful or not successful.
Well, there's a couple things, right? One, I would say that you have to start granting yourself permission to become that. And in so many insidious ways, we don't. We deny ourselves permission to become whole on all those levels. Even if we're granted permission from the people we seek it from, we hold back. So I would tell you it's about the internal work to say yes to yourself more often than no. That's
Is
number
that?
one. And then
Mhm.
I would also say that you need to live a life more of service. What can you contribute than what you can take? You'll
Mhm.
get yours in the end. I mean,
Yeah.
don't worry, you will not be neglected. In fact,
Mhm.
that's a force multiplier when you look for opportunities, or definitely don't distract away from opportunities to be of service to other people.
Mhm.
Everybody has something to give. This does not always mean, philanthropic measures in your bank account. This is big, small ways. Okay. So be in a state of awareness how you can help somebody else out. That brings goodwill, good juju to you.
Right.
Definitely
This
do that. And
isn't just charity.
that's how you become whole, though.
Right.
That's how you start to recognize your self-worth in this world by what
Mhm.
you give to it, what your
Right.
contribution is. Have something bigger than yourself that you can believe in. And I do feel that my strong spirituality, that practice has made me who I am today. And
Mhm.
I'm okay with who I am today.
Right.
Yes, I go to church on Sunday. I go to a Christian-based church. Not, you don't have to practice it that way, but I encourage everybody to, take a minute, and sometimes it's just like you grow your spiritual side by living in more gratitude. Take a minute every morning. Think of 3 things that you can be grateful for, even on the bad days and the bad weeks, because there's always other things that could be on your plate that aren't. Okay. So I like to just say, look, I'm grateful for the sound of the birds out the window. I don't know. Look how beautiful that is. It seems simple. It seems ordinary, but it's no less perfect. Oh, thank you. Look at the way my dog's cuddling up next to me today. Like, not everybody gets to have a pet that they love. Like, it could be little things. It doesn't have to be the grand things.
Right.
So that's what I
It's
would say
high
about that.
vibe, like
Yeah.
everything you just talked
Mm-hmm.
about, to keep you at an
Yeah.
elevated level, to get that
Mm-hmm.
clarity, to get the awareness, to get the
Mm-hmm.
intuition. Because when you're too busy, there's loud music, or you're substance abusing or whatever, you can't hear.
Yeah.
You
No,
can't
you
get clear
can't.
with God
You
or the
can't
higher
internalize.
power at all. And
Yeah.
I think, um, like, something that you emphasize too is, gratitude on a daily basis. Like, some people think they just go to church on Sunday. Well, that's not how it works. It's
No.
daily. daily sinking in and talking to
I talk
source,
to God. I mean, to me,
the source, right?
it's prayer. I was, raised Catholic. I mean, I knew prayers. I could recite prayers, like off the top of my head. But I don't know that I was living those messages necessarily. I didn't internalize them. I had, you know what I had? I had a lot of respect for it, but not a lot of attachment. That's how I would describe it. But I didn't even know that. I thought I was a good little Catholic girl because I had a pretty strong moral code, and I wasn't evil in any sense, and I behaved, and I was kind of like, not a goody two shoes, certainly, but somebody that wasn't off the rails. There was nothing. I was never, stealing or doing any kind of. But it's so much bigger than that. Our relationship, that we can have with God, and today that's what it looks like. But what I've learned about myself is that I know a lot of things, Tori, but there's
Mhm.
also I know nothing. I
I
want to
know.
be a student of life. Yeah, but
Right.
once you get right with that,
Mhm.
everything changes, because
Right.
now I'm not in fear of what I don't know. I'm more curious about it. And
I think that's a great point, is that you're curious
yeah,
because you're learning until you die. I mean, that's why we're
yes,
all here. We're on a journey to
yeah.
learn.
And I'll tell you what too, another game changer, and one I want to just mention on your show is that, drop any comparison habits that you may have. Okay.
Mhm.
The
Yep.
only sin is comparison. When we
Yeah,
look at other people and we're like, oh, they're so perfect or they're so much smarter or whatever, what a colossal waste of time. I
totally.
ran with some very big hitters in New York, and these people were savants at development and finance and cap rate, all these things. And I remember thinking, oh, they're so much smarter and there's so much this and that, and being intimidated sometimes. And the truth of the matter is, they were those things, but they weren't better than me. They knew other things that I didn't know, but there were things that I knew better than them. But, we can easily look at what we don't know and think that somebody is better than. Get rid of that. Nobody's better than, and you're not less than. That's all
Exactly.
under the umbrella of ego. When
Totally.
you think about yourself as too big or too small, you're living in self, you're living in ego. Ego stands for edging God out in my world, in other people's world that don't, aren't a believer. They can
Love
say
that.
edging goodness out.
Mhm.
EGO, edging goodness out. So,
Right.
stay away from ego, stay away from comparison. The only woman that I compare myself to is the yesterday's version of Danielle.
Yeah.
And no,
Right.
end of story. That's
Right.
it. Can I be a better version? Because there's always room for improvement.
I
And
agree.
that's
You
that.
should only compete with yourself. I've always said that. I never
Yes.
cared what anyone else is doing. I just care about who was I yesterday and where am I gonna be today.
Yeah. I use those other things outside that I used to compare to as
Mhm.
sources of inspiration. I
Yeah.
use them as benchmarks, and I use them for, like, so today, more so than earlier in my life, I want to be the least smartest person in that room. I want to be
100%.
around people.
You
Yeah,
wanna be around
but
people better than you to
yeah,
learn.
yeah, right. And so, and to appreciate the opportunity in there, instead of, self-obsessing, like, do I deserve to be here?
Mhm.
Am I less than they are? Hell to
Right.
the no on that kind of way of thinking. Do you know what? Just, yeah, it's
Like,
like,
people who are jealous, it's a waste of time, like, because to me,
yeah,
those people you be jealous of, those that if you wanna aspire to be like them, you wanna know how
yeah,
did they get there? And
yeah,
and if you even have a career, especially like you and I, where we've had access to high level people,
yes.
you will learn more than you're gonna learn in your MBA class, okay?
Yeah,
Or
no,
whatever,
100%.
college, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you've got long meetings or car rides or plane
You
rides with
know,
them, right?
It's and then there's the things that people are born with, like, especially
Mhm.
as a woman, right? We're
100%.
brought up, and then you're playing the pretty card. Well, guess what? I mean, I don't care how many, times I hang around with let's call her Molly. I don't have a friend Molly, and she's like 5'10" and she's got long legs, and I got these short legs, right? And so I'm never gonna have like her stature and her thing. And I could be like, oh, I wish I looked like her. Well, you know what? I don't do that anymore.
It's
That's a waste
stupid.
of time. But
Waste of
because
time.
here's the thing, God blessed her in a different way, and I
Yeah.
have other things, and I'll tell you what, and I'm sure you're gonna agree with this. There have been so many times in my life where I have been part of private conversations where you see that perfect person that I'm jealous of because she's so, the blue eyes and the long legs and whatever, and then I hear the tragedy around her life and certain things that she's been exposed to or that she's gone through, and I thought, "Oh, no, I don't wanna be her." Okay,
Well, that goes
understand
back to
this.
comparison, right?
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
really
that's why
does.
don't ever compare yourself or be jealous,
Nobody.
because if you found out we all have a
Yeah.
dark life and
We
a light
all
life.
have hurts that we're healing from. We all have things. So there really is no such thing as perfect. And just look at what you have and not what you don't have. If there's something that you want, well, go put on your big girl pants and go get it. Go
Yep.
get it.
Because
You
really,
know, and
God's the only
so,
one on your side. No one else is.
you know, well, I guess. I mean, he's the only one that's the resource and power behind it.
To
But
put
you
the
can
right
align with
people.
people
Yeah.
who are on your side. But you know what? You can only control yourself. You
Right.
cannot control people, places, and things. And once you accept that as true, guess what? All of a sudden, life is lighter. It's just lighter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Well, this was an amazing conversation. I'm so grateful you came on. I'm really honored and
So much
privileged
fun.
because you've got so much insight. And, definitely check Danielle out even on other podcasts because everyone interviews different and has different questions and you can learn a ton. And I encourage everyone to also look into her book. And I'd love you to tell everyone where to find you.
I would say at this point, really, it's like, just the website because all the other attachments are on there. So at Unscripted Pivots,
Mhm.
it's spelled just the way it sounds, UNSCRIPTED, PIVOTS.com. And on there, there's links to all my socials. I'm on YouTube and, X, that we're both on X and, obviously LinkedIn and, Substack, all of them. I mean, I grace all these platforms, but I'm not a superstar in any of them. I don't put in that much information on that, but I do have a connection source there. And the book is available. WTF is available on Amazon, and it's priced right, and it's doing really, really well.
When is your other
So
book going to be published?
the book is in the second edit phase right now. So what I mean, second edit, the book is done and now it's being looked at, not by the publisher, but by, friends and whatnot. And so it's just, well, honestly, not friends. It's really my daughter. She's the best proofreader in the world. And so then I will hire a professional to do it like I did for WTF. But it's going great. But I mean, it's an allegory. It's a fable. So I'm putting forth a real business method in a fictional story. So to come up with all those characters was it was really quite the stretch for me. But once it started taking off, it was just so cool. And the name, and there's a coach in this thing, this, a leadership, I think we
Mhm.
call her a leadership architect, they call her in there. And her name is Helen. And Helen is the name of both my mother and my grandmother. They're both deceased. So once I named it that, this book really started to take formation. I think I always have these sources from above that are working with me and for me. So,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
And don't forget too, if you go to her website, sign up for
Mhm.
Danielle's newsletter because your newsletter is very informative. It's easy. It's a quick read. It's a quick read. And, my hope is that anyone who's listening can walk away from this episode remembering any of your WTF moments because we all have them and realize
Yes.
like you're not behind, you're not broken. You just
You're
have to be
just
more
on
honest.
time.
Yeah, you just have to be
Yeah.
more honest with yourself,
Yes.
sit with yourself and listen. So I thank everyone for listening to another episode of the Tori
Mm.
Nook Talk Show. And you can catch new episodes on Wednesdays and on my YouTube channel at Tori Nook. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please hit subscribe. Please give a comment. I'd love to hear from you.
All
Thanks,
right. Thank
Danielle.
you.
I love it.